What's going on, guys? So you are looking at a very interesting bike, and it's a bike that, I probably wouldn't normally own. If you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a big biking enthusiast, but I haven't ever owned a bike like this, and I haven't even owned its cousin for probably, 25, 30 years maybe. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what that's all about and what you're looking at in front of you. So hang tight, I'll be right back. So first of all, I want to give a big shout out to the folks over at KBO for providing this bike for evaluation on my channel. Okay, so what you're looking at in front of you kind of resembles a road bike, but you'll see the big distinctive difference is that it doesn't have the drop handlebars up front. It has kind of a hybrid style of handlebar up front. What do I mean by that? It's a straight bar. It's not as wide as you would expect to see on like a mountain bike, but it's not a drop bar like you'd expect to see on a road bike. You can see that it has very road style tires. Now this is an interesting bike for several reasons. First of all, again, it kind of looks a lot like a road bike, but then it has some characteristics of a hybrid or even a gravel bike. And the interesting point I just made is the fact that it doesn't really share all the characteristics of either. Now the folks over at KBO call this an urban bike. Now the biggest differentiation between this and any of those bikes I've talked about is the fact that this is an e-bike. You heard me right, this is actually an e-bike. Now on the surface it's kind of difficult to tell that it is an e-bike because they've done a really good job integrating the battery into the frame, and even from a distance you might even think this is a carbon fiber frame simply because of how smooth everything kind of transitions up until that point right there where you see some welds. Now, the other key differentiation between this bike and a lot of e-bikes on the market is the fact that it is significantly lighter than most e-bikes. So this is only a 36-pound bike with the battery included. The battery is not a removable battery, so you have a little charging port right here on the side so you can recharge the battery. The specifications on the battery is that it is a Panasonic battery cell, 345 watt hour. It has a 350 watt peak hub motor output, so the motor is actually back here in the rear hub. It is also a belt-driven bike, so you can see the belt right there. That's very different. It is going to give you several benefits and not a lot of drawbacks, to be honest. It is only a single speed bike, so you don't see like a derailleur in the front or the back, which means it's really only set for one speed. But because it's an e-bike, you have the ability to change the amount of effort and the amount of output you get based on pedaling. So that is really cool. Some other perks that really stand out on this bike, especially in its price range, is the fact that it has a threadless stem up here. So you actually have a clamp up top like you would typically see. You have a lot of spacers right here. You'd be able to easily swap out the stem and the handlebars if you want. It has double lock-on grips, which is really nice. It has mechanical disc brakes. That's a big disadvantage, and these brakes just don't operate that well. If there's one big improvement that this bike could use, it would be hydraulic disc brakes or just a better tuned mechanical disc brake, because it's very difficult to stop this bike. And when you come from a bike with really good disc brakes, or even $1,000 bike with really good disc brakes, these are kind of, I hate to say it, they're kind of poor. They're just not a really good brake option. Range on this bike is 18 to 53 miles. Now that's going to depend on a lot of factors, mainly what power mode you have. This is going to have 3 different assist settings, 1, 2, and 3, and that's simply going to dictate how fast you can go based on how much effort you're putting into pedaling. And again, for only a 36-pound e-bike, this is actually really cool. It has a headlight already included with a little reflector on the front. It's a 36-volt headlight because the battery system in this is also 36-volt. And the motor, one other thing about the motor is that it's a brushless motor. So the sustained wattage is 250 watts. I think I mentioned earlier, has a 350-watt peak output. I really like this bike, actually. This is the type of bike that you would only want to keep on the road. These tires are definitely not designed for trail applications, even light trail applications. It's a bike that is easy to own, which means it doesn't take up a lot of space. You can easily remove the front skewer here if you want to pull the front wheel off. The back, much more difficult, again, because it is a hub-driven motor. It comes with some pretty nice components. It has some Welgo aluminum platform pedals, which are nice. Again, not a big fan of the brakes. I'll probably swap those out to hydraulic brakes just so I can get better braking force, because right now both the front and the rear brakes just aren't cutting it for me. And the seat, the saddle is actually quite comfortable. and it's a Sealy Royal, so it's a good saddle and it is comfortable. I rode this for probably 20 miles when I first got it and I was super impressed. So saddle's really nice, the grips are really nice. I'm actually a big fan of these, and again, like I mentioned earlier, it's a double lock-on grip, which is really nice, so you don't have to worry about them kind of working their way off. The computer's nice, it's very easy to navigate through. You simply hold this down to turn it on or off, and then you press it individually to turn the headlight on or off, and then you change your pedal assist with this button right here. Again, very easy to work, very intuitive. Brakes suck, definitely need better brakes. Not a big fan of those at all. The wheels look really nice. Now, I don't know how well they're gonna hold up over time. I don't know, how durable they are, but in the riding that I've done on it so far, I've been pretty happy. Has a nice aluminum bottle cage that's included. Overall, the bones of this bike are super cool because it's easily upgradable. The wheels, you're not really going to be able to do much with, simply because it is a hub-driven motor, so you'd have to replace a wheel with one that's compatible and have it re-spoked to work with it. And the fact that it's a belt drive system, not a lot you can do there. Handlebar, cockpit area, you could easily upgrade all of this stuff. You could easily upgrade the brakes, the rotors, the seat post, the stem if you wanted to. You can change the amount of spacers you have here. You could cut it down a little bit, and you could probably put a drop bar up front if you wanted this to be more of a road bike. It definitely has the very narrow profile of a typical road bike, which I think a lot of people will like. But overall, this bike's only a little over $1,000. So from a value perspective, it's really hard to beat the price. For an e-bike that mixes hybrid with road bike characteristics into a relatively light package at 36 pounds for being an e-bike, that's pretty insane. That's just really good. I mean, there's a lot of things to like. Instantly, I would upgrade the brakes like I've been talking about. The front cockpit area, again, if you're looking for that hybrid, this is going to be really good for you. Keep in mind, no suspension, so you just want to be aware that it's going to be a much firmer ride than you might think, simply because there's no shock absorption in there at all, and the low profile nature of the tires definitely aren't going to add to that. So again, price on this bike is a little over $1,000, I think $1,099. Super cool, really enjoy it. Not a road bike fan myself, so kind of mixing this with a hybrid aspect is pretty cool to me, honestly. I'm going to put some more miles on it, and I'll give you kind of a follow-up on what my overall impression is, especially of the belt-driven drive system. That's interesting. When you talk about a high-end bike, typically your higher-end e-bikes are going to have a mid-drive system where the motor's right here, not in the back. Hub drive is not a bad system. It's just not as precise, and it doesn't manage weight as well. But they've done a great job putting this bike package together at only 36 pounds, including the battery inside of the frame. So a lot to like about it. Anyways, guys, I'll put a link to this bike in the description of my video if this is something you might be interested in. From a value perspective, I think it's an insane value. I think it's a very, very good value. Typically, the bikes I buy tend to be very, very expensive. So a bike that's slightly over $1,000, in my opinion, is a good value, especially when it mixes all these characteristics as well as upgradability. That's a huge one. The ability to get a bike like this and throw better stuff on it and only be in $1,100 for a base. That's pretty cool. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.